Welcome to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. What's your train wreck? Everyone has one. The question is, are you going to live there or are you just visiting? Let's check in with Mary, Fran, and Kristin to learn how to come through not broken, but brilliant.
Hey everyone, before we dive into this week's episode, we have a resource that we wanted to tell you about.
Transform every week of yours with our Brilliance bit that will deliver right to your email inbox. Sign up for it at brilliantlyresilient.net and keep living brilliantly resilient.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. We have a new friend today who's going to talk to us about something I hate. So I can't wait to hear what she has to say. Tai Goodwin is the head of that marketing team. If that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up, ladies, or whoever's listening in that entrepreneurial world, I am right there with you. Tai is also a former teacher turned entrepreneur. So she has a lot in common with Kristin, my buddy, Kristin Smedley, who's my partner over here, and I already. So Tai, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ladies, I am so excited to be here and have this conversation. And marketing is the thing that you don't like. I'm going to totally change your mind by the time we're done.
I hope so. I really do, because I'm trying, and it is not the easiest job in the world. And I think, and this is maybe where you can help with this, I think marketing has there's kind of this reputation about it as this big scary beast that is really hard and challenging to navigate, especially because there's so many tools. Like, where do you even start with this stuff? It's really difficult. But before we get into all that, I want to talk about your earlier background. You were a teacher, and I think this is probably why you have a sweet spot with marketing. So kind of catch us up to that and bring us to this point with your earlier background and where you are now.
You had asked me 30 plus years ago where I would have ended up. I would never have thought I would be an entrepreneur. I was a teacher, and I still teach, but just bigger kids now. But I was a fifth grade teacher. I had done AmeriCorps, and I quickly realized, though, that I did not have that kind of superhero or those kind of superhero boots. I didn't have that kind of cape to be that kind of superhero. And so I left teaching after about 2 years. And I went into the dark side of corporate training. And I was a corporate trainer for, Fortune 500 companies. I worked at Barnes & Noble, helped them bring e-learning into that company, had a lot of fun. But I didn't like that I didn't have the freedom and flexibility. And so I had a daughter, and my goal was I was going to work, I was going to have my own business so I could stay home with her. Didn't quite work out that way. And I ended up launching my business while working. But the beautiful thing was that she really inspired me to not, have a day job, like not only focus on having a day job. I started my business when she was born. It took me a few years, actually maybe 6 or 7 years to actually leave corporate America altogether. But she actually works in my business now. So it's been a great thing to grow the business and grow my daughter at the same time. And so now we are that marketing team. This is a few iterations of, my journey from starting out as a career coach and then going into social media management and then forming my own agency. But that's where we are now. We help our clients let go of their fear and hatred of marketing so that they can actually generate leads in a way that feels good to them. So that's what we do.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking about teaching and marketing, and there are a lot of similarities. I mean, in teaching, you think about the lesson plan. Mm-hmm. What do they know? What do they know already? What do they need to know? And how can I get them to know that? Right? Yeah. Like that kind of is with your audience in marketing. That's pretty much what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. Marketing is about 80% education, because you're always educating your audience that either they A, have a problem, right? Or B, there's a solution to that problem, or C, you're the best solution for that problem. And if you think about it that way, and the fact that you're going to be creating content and that you have a lesson plan, which is your marketing calendar, it really does become something that I find a lot of fun. But you have to take off that mantle and think, that big burden, and think, oh my gosh, marketing, it's so heavy and it's a 4-letter word and it's horrible. Because at the end of the day, it really is about education.
Now that is something I had not previously thought of, to put it in that light. I mean, but it makes perfect sense to this idea that you have a problem and then you're the solution to the problem. Your customer has a problem and you have this solution to the problem. I never really looked at it that way. I mean, I know you're supposed to be the answer more or less to your clients, but when you put it in terms of to educate and to teach, it does make it a little bit clearer and just a bit less daunting, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And what people think is marketing is more flash, because a lot of times when people hear marketing, they think, oh, Instagram influencers, and I got to make video. And yes, some of that is true. But at the end of the day, a lot of that's just flash. And I know from experience, I will tell myself all day long, I was Facebook rich and profit poor for 5 years. I had a lot of flash. People loved me. They would comment, oh, you're so great. All these words are so encouraging. And I had no clients. So that's what flash does. Marketing, there's strategy behind it. Marketing, there is, it's a repeatable system for creating predictable income. And once you have a system that works, and then you learn how to optimize it, it takes away that uncertainty and insecurity that most people feel with marketing, which makes it something they gravitate away from instead of towards.
So what would you say to folks then? I love that you said you're Facebook rich. There are a lot of people, especially that follow the podcast, that have lots of followers on Instagram, Facebook. They have entertaining posts. I love when they come up in my feed. What would you say was one of, when you look back and you flip that around and got more, business profit as opposed to Facebook wealth? What was it? Was there a tipping point? Was there one or two things that you realized, oh, I need to switch this and do this way?
Oh, absolutely. The biggest tipping point was actually learning how to market. We think that just because we have Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those names, right? We think that just because we have those platforms and we post something that's marketing. You do realize that there are people that spend whole undergraduate degrees and postgraduate degrees and certification programs learning how to market. There are entire companies that have whole teams of people, and their only job is to do marketing. So there's no way that learning how to post something on Facebook and that's it can really be considered marketing, but it makes us feel good, right? And so once I started learning, marketing, there's some strategy behind this. And here's something, I do this all the time. I just did a big article or a write-up about this. Is one of the things that I stopped doing was stop friending all of your peers on Facebook. We friend all these other coaches and all these people that are doing the same thing that we're doing. And then we're all going back and we're liking each other's posts. And we're like, well, nobody's reading my stuff. Well, you're sending it to the people that are in your same niche. Like, they're not your clients. They're not going to buy from you. You're not going to buy from them. But doesn't it feel so good to have all those friends liking your stuff? Absolutely. Is it getting you any clients? Absolutely not.
So that, I think, is one of certainly the biggest pitfalls to the availability of the internet and all that. You feel like if you're putting stuff out there and there are eyes on your stuff, your posts, your sites or whatever, that's marketing. But if it's the wrong eyes, it doesn't matter, because they're not the ones who are buying your merchandise. So clearly, or your product. So clearly there's some depth work that needs to be done in order to reach the right people, number one, but then number two, how to reach them. Like, as you said before, how to make them see that there's this problem here that they have. So how do you even begin to unravel this? Because I know most of that logically, but the idea of diving into it it makes me want to go hide under the bed.
Yeah, I know that for a lot of folks. And, it's one of those things, quite honestly, and people may not like to hear this, but I think it's people having to make a decision. Are you an entrepreneur or are you a freelancer? See, a lot of people want to be, they say they want to be entrepreneurs, but what they really want is freelance work. Right. They want somebody to hire them, and I'm going to work with you, and then I'm not going to ever have to have another sales conversation for like 6 months because I've got this work coming in. And that's a freelance. And listen, there's no shame in that. Like there's a real place for freelancers, and freelancers make really great money. But what we've done is we say, oh, well, because I don't have a job, I'm now an entrepreneur. But then they don't want to do the things that an entrepreneur does. And an entrepreneur, especially when you're new, like 80% of your time is marketing. Like it makes me laugh when people say to me, Kristin, they say, well, I don't have time for marketing. And I'm like, but you don't have any clients. So what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? Like you have no clients, but you have no time for marketing. Like that math don't math that way, right? So you spend a lot of your time generating leads and making yourself visible and doing all of those things. And I want to touch back on something else you said, that because this is very true too. People think that just because you posted that people see it.
Yeah.
I did this with a client just the other day. She was like, well, I'm posting, but nobody's responding. I said, okay, let's go take a look. And so we looked at her post, and right there on Facebook, on her screen, it said 50 views, not 1,000, not 100, 50 views. So only 50 people saw it. And it may have been a fleeting view because, you know, when you go on and you see things in your feed, 50 people saw that post. That's not enough traffic. And so for all of my friends who love organic marketing, listen, I think organic marketing is amazing. But if you're doing organic marketing, it requires a lot of posting and a lot of consistency and a lot of driving traffic. And those are the things that feel overwhelming to people because we really don't understand how marketing works. We really do think that if I post something on these platforms, then social media is going to show it to all of them. And I always remind people that you have to remember all of these platforms, they make their money through advertising. So for us who are not paying for those posts to be seen, they're not concerned about showing our stuff to people. And rightly so, they've got a team, right? Think about all the people that work at Facebook or LinkedIn. They've got to get paid somehow, or else they're not going to have jobs. They've got families to take care of too. And so when you think about it from that, like looking at it like an ecosystem, right? They've got to take care of their employees. So they have to charge advertisers. So your content is not going to be as visible as those people who advertise. And that's how all of that works together.
So let me ask you this. Let's get kind of practical here. Yeah. I'm thinking about just in the past 2 weeks, the people that have reached out to me either here in my hometown or through email and social media that have listened to episodes of the podcast. And just off the top of my head, the people that have reached out, there's an owner of a magazine. There's a fitness over 40 coach. Like they have lots of different companies, entrepreneurial things. What would you, and let's just use us as an example for we have the podcast. Help all of those listeners understand, because I get it. There's a difference between marketing and advertising, right? Marketing and branding. There's a difference. What would it look like for our podcast what's the difference between an entertaining post on Facebook versus something that is actually marketing for listeners for our podcast?
Wow, that's a great question. And honestly, it all falls under marketing, right? Because it's about connecting, right? It's about attracting. You know, you think about the buying cycle for people, right? I'm going to attract them. I'm going to make them aware. I'm going to help them. You know, I'm going to educate them. I'm going to convert. Like there's a whole phase to this when people find your content. And so and that's where people get mixed up. They just create content for one thing, sell. I'm going to convert. I'm going to sell. And that's a lot of what advertising is, right? Advertising is like, I want you to be aware of who we are and what we do, and I want you to buy something. All right. And then you've got those other nuances, like we're marketing, where we're building relationships with people, right? We're connecting with people. We're nurturing that relationship with people. And so the thing that might make people uncomfortable is that you've got to have content that addresses each one of those things. So let's say for your podcast, right? I always start with my clients. Well, what's the problem that your podcast is solving for people? Right. So what's the problem? What do you solve? What do you solve for folks?
In a nutshell.
Yeah. Go ahead. You take this one, because I mean, I know the answer, but I think that's the other part of it, is that articulating it in a way that is clear.
Yeah.
to not only yourself, but anybody else. So what would you say, Kate, to that?
I would say the number one thing is we inspire people to take the next right step towards being resilient with whatever they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. And why do they want to be resilient?
They're tired of being stuck in the muck.
Yeah. So they want to be in a place where they feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because I always help my clients frame it in what do people really want? What do they pay for? Right. Whether the payment is money or attention, right? They're paying with their attention and their time. So they want to feel better and they want to know that they can do something different.
Right.
So if that's the case, your content is going to focus on, hey, awareness. Look, we're brilliantly resilient. We've got this podcast. Let me just show you what it is. That's awareness that's there, that you're there. But how are you helping them become aware that they're stuck?
That's a good question. I guess I assume, probably another very bad word in marketing, to assume that people know they're stuck. I mean, don't you know that? I don't know. Do you not know that?
Some
or
people
is it that
do. Yeah, some people do. And it goes into your audience. Like some people know that they're stuck. Some people don't even realize that they're stuck. Right. So it's the person who's, or I mean, we always talk about how it's like relationships, right? It's the person who knows that, man, my partner and I don't communicate at all. I need help. Versus a person that says, man, why am I getting so irritated with this relationship? Right? They know there's something's happening, but they're not aware of why. Oh, I know why I feel this way, because we're not communicating. Which is
so
different.
then how do you, and this is a fascinating conversation, because I certainly have heard before that marketing is about relationships. How does a company, a service, then reach an individual? Because this is all very, nebulous kind of term. I don't know this particular person. How do you reach people with these like general enough questions to be applicable to them, to get them to respond to you? Because, everybody's issues, challenges, or whatever are personal to them, but you can't reach every single person with a very finely tuned individual. Hey, I know what you're going through. Right. So how do you make it general yet specific enough to get people?
I love that you asked this question. And this is why marketing gets to be so much fun. It's all about who you're focusing on now. One of the big challenges my clients have is they say, well, this is for so many people. You don't have Walmart or Coke money to market to everybody, but you can focus on one problem. So let's say for the next 30 days, we're really going to focus on people who need to be resilient when it comes to their jobs. Right. There's a whole lot of shift happening in the marketplace, and oh my gosh, and you got laid off again and laid off again and laid off again. And how do you get the courage to come back when you've been laid off 3 times in the last 3 years? So now if you focused on that core of your audience, oh my gosh, do you know how many engaging conversations and authors and books and solutions just geared to that would bring all those thousands of people who've got their ears tuned for that solution? And then they're going to stick around because you guys are just so much fun. They're going to stick around when you start talking about other stuff. So then the next 30 days, you say, you know what, man, let's talk about resiliency when it comes to parenting, or let's talk about resiliency when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And every month you're targeting that specific audience because now you're zoomed in and you've got that attention, and they'll stay because they like you, ladies. But you got to focus to bring them in, because that's what's going to catch their ear. That's what's going to get their attention and help you filter out from all the other noise that's out there in the marketplace right now.
Brilliant. That was brilliant. I'm thinking about something I saw on LinkedIn, and you'll love this, Tai, because it brings in everything you're talking about. I follow the editor-in-chief of entrepreneur.com, Jason Pfeiffer. His following him is phenomenal. He is so good at marketing and the whole thing, right? Plus, he's just I just think he's a cool person. He's my kind of style of writing and talking. But today he had this post, and it was a viral, I think TikTok. I think it was a viral TikTok. And it was astounding. It was like 8 teenage guys that had to get over a wall using just their bodies. And I had no sound on. I just watched them and they got on each other's shoulders and they're pulling each other over the wall. And then somebody had something on their back that the last guy could hang on. It was brilliant. He showed that video, but his post was about, he has a book about building business and relationships and stuff. And his post was about, yes, that's entertaining. Oh my gosh. But think about everything that went into that, the planning, the communication. And I'm telling you, in like, it was a less than a minute and a half read of this post that he brought out all the stuff that he does with that video. It had my full attention. And then at the bottom, he had, if you want more like this, subscribe to my newsletter. I talk about this all the time. And I was like, everything you just said, that's what he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. Is this what they mean by the whole kind of, it was so funny that you said earlier, this applies to so many people, because Kristin and I have said that a million times. Oh, could listen to this. That's great stuff. And all of that may very well be true, but I think it's hard for people who recognize that their work is widely applicable to pull back and go small to get big. Do you run into that with your clients? Like, but why should I just focus on this little group when everybody should know this?
Absolutely. And that's because people don't understand how marketing works. And I'm like, I always say, affirm them. Yes, you're absolutely right. You don't have the money, the time, or the bandwidth to handle that, though. You don't have the money to pay for marketing to everybody. You don't have the time to sit and market to all those people. And even if, and let's just fantasize for a minute. Let's say you did market to everybody and everybody decided to buy from you and be your client. You cannot do that. You don't even have the bandwidth to support all of that. But it's like your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And that's
in the candy shop.
Right?
I want it all. I want all the candy.
Like every Thanksgiving, like I'm looking at all the food my family has cooked and I'm like, oh yeah, I want all this. And I eat like 2 bites, right? But that's how we think about it. And it's because I say this all the time, that the internet has made the barrier of entry very low to entrepreneurship. Because it used to be you had to have a store, and you had to have business cards, and you had to have office space. And now it's like, I put up a Facebook photo and I'm an internet entrepreneur. And so it's made that barrier of entry very low. But what it's done is it's made the barrier to success very high. Because people don't learn how to market. They don't want to do the unsexy research to really figure out who their best audience is. They want to show, but they don't want to listen. Right? There's all these things that make a brilliant entrepreneur and a marketer. They don't want to learn how to tell stories, which is what he did. That was so brilliant, Kristin, right? He told a story within a story. And there's skill to that. And people don't always recognize that that's a skill set that they can learn, which is great. But it doesn't mean that you just found some random picture and you put it up and say, buy my stuff. That's not what he did there. There was some real skill and nuance into how he framed that made you feel welcome, that invited you to come in and want more, and that made you want to subscribe. And that's what good marketing, that's what effective marketing does. It connected and it converted you.
I love it. Mary Fran and I had a converse type of experience recently that I think that would be very helpful for listeners, and you'll probably be very interested in this, Tai. We were, we go out and speak, and we were, going around the country and doing our Brilliant the Resilient program, which is one program of 9 pillars. And then sometimes we have to shorten it, only focus on a few, and we were finding audiences that they could not get enough. The line was out the door for people talking to us. And then there was one that it just didn't land. It was like, and I know every speaker goes through that, like, what is happening? And then when we really, and we're very much perfectionists, Mary Fran more than me is what I realized in this, because she was like, oh, hot damn, I'm going to figure out how to please these people. We have to tweak this, and then let's offer that, and then let's do, and then we finally came to the realization that was they are just the wrong audience. Nothing against them. They do wonderful work in this world, but it was just not our people. And when we finally came to that realization, it was like, oh, okay, let's just stick with the people that are our people. We know we speak the same. We know exactly what their pain is. And that's why they were lining up afterwards. It was wild to sit back. Oh my gosh, but we really are we're like, no, we can make this work for anybody. We can solve all the problems. And then we were exhausted.
Yeah. And it still didn't work.
Yeah. But that's what happens with marketing, right? I'm going to make them love me. I'm going to find this post. And what we like to say is, it's not me, it's you. Right? You don't break up with somebody. It's not you. No. In this case, it really isn't me, it's you. Right? And you just really aren't my people. And it's okay, because there's actual freedom in being able to say, oh, aren't not my people. There's somebody else that's going to do an amazing job and connect with them. Now let me go back over to here where it's fun. Right?
That's the key, where it's fun, because we were having, it's a lot of work, the stuff we were doing and tweaking speeches and figuring out new things that resonate. But we had so much even on the plane rides out to these certain groups, it was like so much fun. And then some of them, it was so,
that's great marketing. That's great marketing data that you've got now, right? Because now
exactly.
Yeah.
And to be able to use those experiences is very freeing, actually, which was a lesson that I really needed to learn, because, Kristin a couple times was like, okay, enough already, enough. And I'm like, no, we're still going to do this. And finally I was like, what is there to be gained by that? Like, at that point, I think you have to ask that question. How much effort do you want to put into converting somebody who just doesn't like you?
Yeah. And listen, I always say to my clients, who is for me is for me. There are some people that they're not going to like my style. They're not going to like that I smile all the time. They're not going to like me. And listen, that's fine. Because there are some people that I definitely don't want to sit through their content, and it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. So wait, I want to go back to now when I was doing my due diligence and my research and everything. You said something about one of the things you wanted to talk about was failing the first time. Two things I want to bring up. Failing the first time as an entrepreneur. And then the second thing was the why. We had been talking about that with someone else on the show not too long ago. So I want to make sure we don't forget that. But let's start with the failing. I always love a good failure story. What's your failure story?
Well, I hinted at it a little bit when I talked about being Facebook rich and profit poor. I had a day job that was supporting my business in the beginning. Like a lot of us do, we launch while working. And then when I left that job, it suddenly hit home that I had no idea how to really market. So I had a lot of likes. This was back in 2012, right? 14,000 Twitter followers, podcast downloaded, all that kind of great stuff. Had a whole lot of stuff going on. Did not have clients, but I did not know how to market. I knew how to be visible. I knew how to create content. I didn't understand about lead generation and nurturing leads and the numbers and the volume. I didn't understand that whole buying cycle. And so I ended up going back to a day job because I couldn't make it. And I was at that day job for about 2.5 years. And I was like, this is not going to work. And I left that day job. And this is the first time ever. Talk about being resilient. I was 40 something years old at the time, and I had never walked out of a job like this. I didn't have a resume. I didn't have another job lined up. I didn't even have an email list. Like, I literally had nothing. And I took my little severance package, and I was married at the time. And I said, I will eat ramen noodles every day for a year before I go back to another day job. So that was almost 6.5 years ago.
Wow.
Right. And within this last 6.5 years, we grew the business. We've hit multiple six figures, have not been, back to a day job ever since. But it was because I took the time to learn how to market. Right. How do I have an offer? How do I talk to the right people? How do I sell? And I had to learn those things, because otherwise I would be back at a day job, because I didn't know how to do it, didn't know how to market.
Wow. I think it's one of the most fun things I have with this podcast is hearing other people's fail stories.
Yeah.
Simply because I'm turning 52 soon, right? And I just feel like I learned so much. And I think it's like sisters, right? That you fail and you talk about it. And it's the fact that I love learning. I was always like a school nerd. I love
Mhm.
learning. So when I started looking at this years ago as in the failures, where is the opportunity to learn? Now I'm almost like, oh, I
Yeah.
screwed that up. Here's an opportunity to learn and grow. And I actually just did a LinkedIn post about this the other day about how I was so afraid of failing
Mm.
because I mean, I grew up with a lot of success in school and sports, and I was expected to succeed all the time. And I also went to, Mary Fran and I are both recovering Catholic school people that, it was like, it was the push to be perfect. And quite
Yeah.
frankly, I got a lot personally out of all the success, but I was like, so afraid to fail that it was paralyzing. And I ended up in I became a teacher. I didn't do any risk taking back then. I got the job, married the guy. I did all the things I was supposed to, so there was no failing. And then when things went
Mhm.
upside down and inside out several times, I was paralyzed in that. Now I'm like, okay, but what you said, you realize you had to learn about marketing. And I just have to, when something doesn't go right, I'm like, oh, because I didn't take the time on the front end
Yeah.
to learn more about that. But now I'm like, oh, cool. What did you learn from that? And the growth. I also see the whole how much if you grow through the thing that happened. Oh my
Mhm.
God. Such a different person. Somebody that I'm dating said to me, I wish that we would have met 30 years ago. And I was like, oh, I don't think you would have. I don't think you would have had such a good time with 30-year ago,
Yeah.
Kristin.
Oh, I had that. That's so funny. I had that same conversation with somebody a little while ago. And, it's funny because he knew me when I was 18 and then we reconnected like 30 years later. Right.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I'm glad we reconnected again, but, I was a mess. I would not have been ready for any of this kind of connection because of
Yeah.
what I had, of how I got to grow and what I got to learn about myself. And so it's that same thing. And I wrote a book. It's back there, that Girlfriend, It's Your Time book. And one of the things I say in there is that it's the difference between bright women and brilliant women. There's a lot of bright women, and
Mm.
bright women, they see their failures as a label.
Mm.
Brilliant women see their failures as stepping stones to what's next.
Shut up. That's amazing.
Yes.
I
Oh,
love that.
man.
And that was something we wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about your book because it those parts of us that are hard, those are the parts that lead to, if we allow that and make that conscious decision, those are the parts that lead to those evolutions and allow us to continue to do those other things. So the question then becomes, going back to your why, was that, the hard parts, and then this girl, it's your time. Was that where you got to, okay, the why? It's my time. I went through a whole bunch of stuff. I couldn't figure it out, but now I'm going to do the work and make it my time. Is that a decision you get to make as well?
It's always a decision that we get to make. And actually, here's what's interesting. It's what we ask for. So a lot of us ask for things and we think that we think about the result, the end result. But what I've learned is that my asking for something, it may take years to receive it because of the growth and work I have to do. And I laughed at it because I wrote that book years ago, but I'm still seeing the results happen now because of the work that I did. And there's no fast ticket all the time. There's no overnight success kind of thing. It's okay if I ask for A, B, and C, it's coming, but it's going to take me being resilient enough to know that I have to become someone different. I have to think different. I have to believe different in order to have those things that I asked for. We're our own self-fulfilling prophecy if we do the work. My brother was a rapper. Here's a whole interesting, fascinating story. He was a Christian rapper. He deconverted. He's just like an amazing person, right? But one of the things that he wrote in his lyrics at one point was, everybody wants to be, but nobody wants to become.
Wow.
Right?
That's profound.
I know, he's like so brilliant, right? And I see that all the time with us, especially with marketing. We want to be the Facebook image. We want to be the video that we saw on Instagram. We want to be that without recognizing that it takes work to become that.
Wow. I want to sit at your family's Thanksgiving table.
I remember hearing a story
Brilliance
about Kevin Hart that was very similar to that. Kevin Hart, the comedian, where he, and I saw him do this. He gets around, with his people before he goes on stage, and he'll say to them, everybody wants to be famous, but nobody wants to do the work. And it's work. It's work. But the thing that I like hearing from you, I like it and I hate it because it still scares me a little bit. But the idea of marketing, it is a process. It is something that you have to educate yourself about. You can't just be, as again, Facebook famous and have likes and followers and all this stuff. You can't eat likes and followers. You can't. They're not going to. Bank doesn't take that for the mortgage payment. So I really do appreciate that there is a process to this. I appreciate how you came to this and how you recognize what you just said about asking for something, but realizing that you may have to change. You're going to have to do the work to be able to get what it is that you asked for. So that's the message that I kind of want to leave our listeners with. Yes, you can have these things, but you have to be willing to learn and to do the work. And it's not as flashy. The flash is fun, but the flash isn't the thing that gets the job done.
Well, that's real living.
That's can everybody find you? Because I want them to know more about you and more about all of this good stuff.
Yeah, well, everywhere, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, you can find me at Tai Goodwin, TAIGOODWIN. If you're specifically looking for some support with marketing, I've got a fun group called Marketing for Non-Marketers, like literally talking to the people that
I am signing up for that.
There's our sound effects.
So, marketing for non-marketers, and that's my goal there, is to make it fun, but also to to educate people. I'm a teacher at heart, so I'm going to teach you how marketing works, so that you can make better decisions, so that you can have more confidence, so that you can not feel like, oh my gosh, I just paid so and so and I have no idea what they're supposed to do, which is a big thing. I hear a lot of people, they want to pay somebody, and that's great, but you need to know what you're paying them for. And so that's what we do in that group. So that's how you can find me.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tai. This has been a very enlightening conversation. And I do actually feel a little bit better about marketing. So thank you for that.
Converting. We're slowly converting a non-marketer to a marketer.
Dragging me to it. Kristin, I'm going to let you wrap this up.
Oh, this has been awesome, Tai. You had my hair standing on the back of my neck over certain things that you were saying, especially this whole, you can ask for something, but you have to watch and see who you're becoming. I mean, I had a therapist tell me, have that goal, and then as you make choices and decisions all day, what would that Kristin make the decisions, and watching all of the growth from then to now has been tremendous. So thank you for reiterating that. I seriously want to hang out with you and your brother with all the brilliance bombs that you guys drop. Holy smokes. And I always say that I have this, in my LinkedIn profile, you have to read it, because I say all the stuff that I want to do in this world and that I have done. And but I still dream of doing a duet with LL Cool J.
Me too.
Oh, let's do it together. We'll tag team them. There we go. All right. We'll start marketing that, and then we'll get the word out. This has been too much fun. Thank you, Tai. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you'd like another set of brilliance and helping you take your next right step in living brilliantly resilient, go to brilliantlyresilient.net, sign up for the Brilliance Bit. We'll deliver it right to your inbox every week, and you can keep living brilliantly resilient. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Brilliantly Resilient podcast. Join our Facebook group and follow us on YouTube to be inspired with tools to reset, rise, and reveal your brilliance.